Hi, I'm Dave Pausner. Welcome to the 5-Minute Update. Join me in a discussion with Seth Earley of Earley Information Sciences, a Massachusetts-based enterprise software provider. They use artificial intelligence to help enterprises deliver information to and collect information from visitors to enterprise websites. Enjoy. The auto company guy said, look, auto companies will be happy not to take any of your data, or conversely to take it all. If you pay them more, they won't take any of it. If you pay them less and they can monetize the data, they'll be happy to do that. And he said that's going to be a very simple, what would you call it, Machiavellian transaction.
Or just a
transaction.
Monetary transaction. Yes.
Period.
Yeah.
So I guess my thought was, I don't know what you would even call that, but in your business, this has got to come up.
Yeah.
And so go with it. Talk to me about value.
Yeah. So I think in the case of, obviously, the large platform providers monetize, that's their whole world is the data, right? Because they're able to target populations, they're able to target ads, they're able to personalize, they're able to get your attention with things that are suited to your interests and even your subconscious motivations, right? Because they can engage, but that's the whole world is that data, and consumers really haven't had much of a say in it, and they're starting to have a little more of a say, and you're starting to have the opportunity to opt out, but it's interesting that you really don't in a lot of cases. If you want to use their website, you certainly need the functional cookies, and you need the absolutely necessary, but sometimes it's a matter of accept it or don't accept it. And if you don't accept it, you don't get the functionality, right? But I think that there is value to that. And when you start looking at organizations and corporations that are trying to capture first party data, right? The data that about me as a customer. I'm authenticated, like I'm logged in, you know who I am.
Correct.
You know my demographics, you know what I purchased before, and you're going to use that ostensibly to provide a better service, but also for your own purposes, right?
Correct.
It becomes second party data when you are selling that, right? And it becomes third-party data when somebody else sells that, right? Like when you sell it to someone who sells it.
Before you get too far down this road, and I'm not sure you're comfortable talking about this, and by the way, I'll attach something to tell people who you are, actually publish.
Sure.
How much of this actually applies to enterprise software? All equally applicable or none applicable?
Well, I think it applies because organizations are realizing that the whole world of cookies is much more tenuous, and the whole world of tracking is much more tenuous, right? Google was going to discontinue, end of life, and then they said, no, we're not going to do that. But people...
Oh, they changed back?
They changed back, yeah. It's like, or it's not going to happen just yet, or there's just there's confusion in
But that's just isn't that sort of a detail? Because if they don't have cookies, there'll be something else.
There'll be something else. There has to be something else. There's, Apple uses device IDs, right, to track things across their world, and that is not as much of an area that I have deep expertise around, but I do know that organizations are trying to do a better job of capturing both the explicit data that people give you, like your name and your address and your interests and your products and what you've done and what you're doing on the website, click streams. But there's also that leads to implicit data, right? The things I can derive and the things I can find in the patterns of your choices. And that becomes something that you have less control over because, you still have to give them permission, but you don't really know what they're inferring about you. Like you can infer a lot of stuff and you may be like, yeah, it's a little creepy, or I don't want you to infer that about me.
So you provide, I want to call it an app, but an application. Your company has applications. I'm guessing that from the way you're talking, you don't collect any of this data.
So when we work with organizations, we have algorithms that we bring to them to do certain things, right?
To their customers?
For their customers, yes.
Oh, but I'm talking, okay,
but we are not collecting that data ourselves.
Number one, you don't collect data from your own, what do you call them, clients? What are your customers called?
My clients, we capture their activities on our website.
Of your clients?
Yep. So if they come and they're downloading things or they're clicking through or they're responding stuff, so we capture that digital body language, what they're interested in, what papers they might be downloading, what they're registering for, all the stuff that's
pretty standard, I
pretty
assume?
standard. Yeah, pretty standard. So HubSpot is one of the CRM systems that does that. And so I'm collecting as much data as I can, right? Like if I look at my data, when's the last time they came? When was the last time we touched them? When was the last time they, downloaded something? Or, how much time did they spend?
Okay,
right?
so standard really, sort of CRM-y type stuff.
CRM-y stuff, yeah.
Okay. So not too invasive. You're not taking advantage of as much information as an auto company might have of a consumer or a phone company might have of a consumer.
Right.
But it's the stuff that if I were a customer / client of yours and I went to your website, I should be aware that you're tracking me. I assume not to sell it, but to help, you would say, to deliver me better data.
Yeah.
Or more information that's suited to what I want.
Yes, that's correct. And
does that bother people? It doesn't bother me.
It doesn't seem to bother people. I mean, again, we have a data privacy kind of disclaimer, right, on the website, and we do say, and I forget what it says, but by coming to this website, you're agreeing to, whatever we're doing with your data, but.
Right, and you'll tell them whether you're selling it or not, but you're probably not selling it.
No, we're not selling it. The only thing that happens is sometimes we'll have a sponsor on a co-presenter or partner
on a webinar,
and then we will say, do you want to opt in to that? Yeah. Or we even ask them if they want to opt in to getting stuff from us.
So can we treat that as non-issue? That's a
non-issue.
Standard.
Yeah, that's pretty standard.
Okay,
yeah,
so
that's a non-issue. Yeah.
So maybe the thing to do is talk about, you provide your clients on top of the software. I mean, so for all intents and purposes, your software could be thought of as it's not just chatbot related. It's enterprise software for information retrieval. How do you generically describe it?
Yeah, it's information retrieval, and a lot of times what we're doing is, we're leveraging AI, machine learning, large language models to help retrieve information more effectively. So it may be the only thing that we bring in is part of an algorithm that works in their ecosystem. Right.
So your clients, customers can throw requests against your clients' portals, websites, whatever, and better retrieve information.
Better retrieve information, get better search results, get personalized search results. That is using their data, right?
Okay, that's not invasive at all.
I don't think so.
What is it you could bring to the table that would be more invasive than that?
Well, I think it would be if you're linking that interaction to other transactions, right? In other locations or things you've done elsewhere, right? We all know all the retargeting, right? Yeah. We all know retargeting, where you've looked at a present for your grandkid, and then you're suddenly getting ads for your grandkid's present all over the place, right? That is, in my opinion, a bit of a misuse of the data, because I'm not asking you to give me these ads all over the place, and I didn't want you to really know that I was looking at that thing, right?
But
I mean, I didn't, it wasn't really I didn't have a choice in it.
But among the packages you deliver to your clients are some capabilities to look at other cookies they may have on their devices to help.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, you can do that. You can, and that's where, again, you have to start. That's where you have to have an ability to have policies and guidelines that talk about what your organization will and won't do with data, right? So within the organization, when you start thinking about ethics, it comes down to, well, what data are you collecting?
Yeah.
And how are you going to use it? And are you getting any data from somebody else?
So Here we go. So I don't recall the policies I've seen, the web site policies I've seen, they've all been quite clear about, we will collect from you this sort of data.
Yeah.
We will or won't use it. Or if we do use it, it'll only be for this. And it's usually pretty generically fine.
Yeah.
And if it isn't, it jumps out at you.
Right.
But I don't recall any addressing, and while you're logged in, we might be looking at the cookies you have.
Right.
Have you seen that? I can look. But
So I haven't really seen that per se, but what I'm saying is that there are lots of data sources that when you touch a company and when you interact, like we're doing a project for a large healthcare equipment manufacturer.
Okay.
And so they have patients, but then they also have providers and they have payers and they have practitioners, right?
Huge
whole ecosystem.
Yeah.
And when you start looking at the data in that ecosystem, there are some very clear walls, right, based on HIPAA requirements. But then there's also stuff that cuts across different parts of the organization and different systems that you might interact with. Well, do you want the sales organization to know about all your service history? Well, guess what? They're going to know about it.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? They're going to know about it. So and maybe that's ostensibly to sell you more what you need, but
seems okay.
Seems okay. But again, when you start thinking about, let's imagine that you are bringing in a large language model from someplace else, right? You're not just using OpenAIs. You're using something that somebody else has trained for your industry or for your business.
Yeah.
And you're licensing that. Well, the question becomes, where did they get that data, right? And did they follow, good practices around understanding whether the data was biased? Did they have rights to all of that information? I mean, even OpenAI is getting, hammered on that by the New York Times, right? So,
but how much do I, as a customer of one of your clients, if you bring the large language model in, how much do I care? I know that as a customer of a client, you may be a little. Number one, I'll be upset if you're biasing your answers in one direction. But I don't care as much as if you take a long stab at providing the information because you were trained badly. I think I will be ticked off if you take information from me as a customer and start growing the model.
Right.
Won't I?
Yeah.
Hi, guys.
Hi. Sorry about that.
That's okay. They're on the podcast.
We'll fix it in post.
Not likely. Keep going. So how do you feel about that? Because I care less about the stuff you bring to me, not my issue. But I do care that you're making money off my...
Well, they are, and they're going to be capturing your behaviors, right? And they're going to be capturing your behaviors and details about how you're interacting because you're touching lots of different systems.
And they can anonymize those so that it's still valuable data.
It is, yes.
Are you skeptical of that?
Well, I'm skeptical of a couple of things. I'm skeptical of when you when you're opting out of training a model, right? That's what they're saying. You're opting out of training a model. So you're going to OpenAI and you go through the privacy stuff and you say, do not train your model with my content.
Oh, I didn't realize you could ask them.
You can do that. And they will send you a statement saying, we are not using your data to train it.
Okay.
But, have you ever found that that a large technology firm has said one thing and then done something else?
Yeah, no, I agree.
Has that ever happened? I don't know if it's ever happened. I don't know if it's ever happened, but I know, obviously,
it does.
It happens, right? So the question becomes, and is there a data breach somewhere where there is this data that people are going to get, right? Any organization. So, there is trust that has to be, engendered in this, and the organization needs to be able to say, we are doing the following things to try to protect your data and to try to use your data effectively. And when we are using data, we are abiding by certain regulations and we're, anonymizing that and we're protecting it and we're, providing notification. I mean, there's certain things within the organization that you just simply need to be aware of and have policies around. And the more important thing about a policy is enforcement. If you have a policy, you're better off not having a policy.
If you're not going to enforce it.
Yeah, if you're not going to enforce it.
If be used against you in law.
Right. So you have to have if you have a policy, you have to enforce it. You have to have a mechanism to showing that you're enforcing it.
Let's assume for the moment you had policies, you could enforce them. I guess what you're getting at is, so what you're driving at is all these things we've talked about or touched on are probably fine if they're addressed, and if I, as the consumer, or the case we had was the client or the customer of the client, know what's going on, which of course I don't.
You don't, and
I don't have time.
And you don't have time. You're not going to read the end user agreements, and what they'll put in those end user license agreements is really whatever they want, right? So in other words, they're notifying you, and you're saying yes, but you don't really know what you're saying yes to.
You don't understand the implications.
You don't understand the implications.
Does it bother you? Does it bother you? Should it bother me?
Yeah, I think it does. I think it should. Yeah. And
so
for example, I donated to a campaign. I won't say what it is.
Doesn't matter.
A nonprofit organization, right?
Okay.
Next thing I know, I'm getting spammed by 1,000 other organizations.
That is irritating.
That is very irritating. Okay. It's like I didn't.
You know exactly how it happened.
I know exactly how it happened. I gave to this one group, and then they're like, "Oh, hey, here's somebody who's going to shell out," and now I get and no matter how many times I opt out, I get another one because it's a different group, or it's a different this, or it's a different number. So my problem with that is I didn't say okay to that. I didn't say yes to that. And so I think there are myriad examples of that. And I think that happens with organizations. So organizations need to take responsibility to not have tricky end user license agreements. And they need to be able to say, is this end user license agreement morally appropriate? Is it commensurate with the value that we're giving? Is it understandable, or do I need to have a lawyer? Is it a 50-page document? Why is it a 50-page document?
Wait a minute. So this is a whole other avenue. I was hoping to constrain. So by the way, you agree that what you just talked about applies equally to phones and to cars?
Absolutely. Everything. Yeah.
And I'll almost say that you seem I was more concerned with, well, can we come up with a price for the transaction, whether I opt in and opt out, we change our pricing. And you're sort of saying it really doesn't matter because they're going to do what they want to do anyway. So
pretty much.
It's not, when I grew up, it was the facts don't matter. Here it's like the policies don't matter. And that seems to dominate. Well, so what's the answer to that? Because you're just saying no rules matter at all. So you're saying the data should not be collectible?
No, I think the data needs to be collectible, and I think it's incumbent upon the organization to look at their policies and their procedures and their guidelines to say, how are we going to act on data? How are we going to collect that data?
That's never going to happen.
What are we going to do with it? No, that's what ethics. That's what governance and ethics are about.
Okay, so let me ask you this.
So organizations don't want to get fined. They don't want to get fined. They don't want to get sued. They don't want to get a bad PR. They don't want to get a bad rap. Right? There are reputational risks. There are financial risks. Right, around how they're doing this stuff. And so if somebody finds out that, holy crap, they've been using this algorithm to do loan approvals, and guess what? It has completely blocked out this one group of people, or whatever it might be, or it is skewed.
How's that ever going to come out?
It's going to come out. It's going to come out because there are researchers. Because there are people that look for that shit.
Well, okay, maybe you contributed to some nonprofit. Maybe that nonprofit will show up in the New York Times someday because they've been doing it now for 10 years or 15 years or whatever, whenever it's discovered. But how about Granger? I'm just thinking of who the people who make those widgets, gadgets. I mean, is anybody tracking them? Is anyone ever going to do an article on Granger? Who cares about Granger?
It really depends on, obviously you make the punishment fit the crime, right?
Yeah.
So what is the potential crime? What is the potential
selling the data to another farm implement company or whatever Granger
right. And they're not going to want to do that anyway, right? Because they're not going to want to, can they monetize that data in a way that doesn't cannibalize their business? Because they don't want to sell contact information or customer information. So it kind of behooves them to say, no, I'm not going to sell that. I'm going to do stuff that fits my own needs, but I won't hurt the customer, but I'm only not hurting the customer because it's in my best interest not to.
The implication of what you just said, though, in your response to me was that it turns out there's a lot of situations where they're collecting data that they really can't do a lot with anyway, other than target you for your next purchase.
Yeah, but I think what is unknowable at this point is just what that data is going to mean in the future, because we're collecting it, and we're collecting this digital body language. We're collecting this metadata cloud
I agree.
around people, right?
Okay.
Because you walk around with your device, your device.
Yeah.
has all sorts of tracking on it. And, you know, when you start looking at those devices that have background, that are running in the background, like you download a flashlight, that flashlight is tracking all your movements and selling that data to somebody, right? That's what's happening. All these apps that are free are mining your data, and you have to shut them off or say they can't track you.
I agree, but you changed gears on me because you went from, and by the way, timing is, you're going to have to get ready to go in a minute.
Yeah.
Okay. Timing is, and I can wrap up and dive out the door, so that's fine. You've changed gears from enterprise software, which is less invasive than my phone, correct?
Yes,
Are you going to prove me wrong?
Yes. No, I'm just going to look at something here because I forgot whether I. Yeah. No, I'm good. Yeah.
Because we can wrap this up, and I want to see how it sounds, and if we want to do it again, we will.
For sure. But no, I realize I did do that. But I think that but think of it this way. This is an extension of who you are.
Yes, the enterprise software is not.
No, because you're going to be using enterprise software on this. You're going to be using websites on this. You're going to be using apps on this.
Okay.
So this is enterprise. There's enterprise apps on this.
No, I agree. There are.
So it's not an extension to say your phone is this huge data generating. It's all creating all of these digital breadcrumbs, and that you're leaving everywhere for all of these applications that you have on your phone, unless you stop them from doing.
Okay, so that was great. I didn't think I was going to be able to ask this question, but we're running out of time, and I want to ask it, which is then, given the possibilities for, I'll call it misuse, or at least unmonetized use, because if you monetize it, I'd be happy, but we'll call it unmonetized use. Would you ever consider putting in license agreements you have with your clients, constraints that covered things like that? Or is that like, that's their ethics, it's not my ethics? Because that was what the program was going to be about.
Yeah, it is kind of their ethics, not my ethics, to a degree.
Yeah,
to a degree. But if I am providing data sources from large language models or other, I need to be held harmless, right?
I agree with that.
So I need to.
I bet you are right now. I bet your agreement does cover that. Do you agree?
I hope so. We'll find out, right? We'll find out. There's a big scam going around about using images, and we always license images. Always, always, always. We never put up an image that we do not license.
Yes.
Well, everybody should.
Yes,
everybody should.
Yes,
but we absolutely will never use an image that is not licensed.
I agree. That's one kind of data that we're smart about.
Yeah, we're smart about. But there are companies out there that are pulling their licenses, their images from repositories, and then going after companies for misuse, saying that you didn't license this. Then you go back into the repository, it's not there anymore. And guess what? Because they pulled it. They pulled it.
Oh, no shit.
Yeah, no shit. Yeah, and it was like $1,000 per incident.
Well, wait till Getty does
and there were like three incidents. It was It was from one of the big suppliers. So it was against their policy, but it was the provider of the image that pulled it, and then this firm,
sounds like a scam.
Oh, it is a scam.
Total scam.
Oh, it's a total scam.
Okay.
It's completely illegal.
Okay.
But it's like, what do you do? Do you have time to track that down?
That's really interesting.
Or do you just pay $1,000?
Well,
right?
what you do is, I guess, okay. I know how to get around that one. You should go. This was really helpful. Good.